in, I think it's like, what was it, 6 seconds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Somewhat Helpful. Bit of a webcast that we're currently doing to shine the light on some brilliant, Princess Trust young entrepreneurs and get a bit of an insight into the interesting projects that they're working on, their story. And we have certainly got someone that fits that criteria with us today. We have got Mel Saggs of Seven Pencil. Say hi, Mel, just so I know that everything is technically sound. Awesome. So I guess we could jump into the conversation. So, what is all of this beautiful artwork that we're currently looking at, and what's the story behind it? How did you get into, correct me if I'm wrong here, but how did you get into doing this kind of street art that we're seeing on your website?
Strangely, I got into it through doing a fine art degree. So it's not really born out of original graffiti sort of defiance or anything. It's born out of an interest of and a love for painting large scale. When I was doing my national diploma, excuse me, a teacher I had sort of dared me to paint the side of an art barn wall. And I did, and it was amazing, and here I am today, basically. I've always had a fascination for street art and wanted to be involved in it. I think, I don't know where it was, but I have a memory of when I was very young, I saw a mural and was just like, that's made my day. And I guess that's what I want to do for people. I want to brighten all the dull grey buildings up and make people happy and stuff. Quite a childlike want, I suppose.
No, and it certainly looks like you've brightened up a few dull buildings in the in the website that we're looking at. So I know that there are a few examples that that we were having a chat out just before we went live here, of a few pieces that I believe quite recent and have interesting backstories. So I'm just going to head over and pick out one of these. So you've got this one here.
So that is a room in a Spanish hostel in San Pedro. I got the opportunity to go out there and paint an entire room and sort of have a free holiday, basically. I also painted another couple of bits out while I was out there, met some people. I was out there for a total of 2 weeks, and I think I did 5 murals about that size. So I did. It was my first trip abroad alone as well, so that was quite an interesting experience. And that was, I think, quite an important piece in my work so far, where I've sort of discovered where I'm heading with my artwork, in terms of doing portraits and having a fascination with pattern and everything. So that was maybe 2 years ago, I think. About 2 years and a couple of months ago, I went to do that one.
And there was this one as well. Another kind of painting and accommodation, I think.
That one is a pub
Ah.
in Scotland called Black's Bar in Peterculter near Aberdeen. They saw the work in the previous. They were actually on holiday when I was out in doing the Hostel Plaza piece, and I was actually painting a train at the time. I was covered in paint, and we went to a small, I think there was a wakeboarding park near where I was doing it, and I had paint all over me, and we went to have a soft drink or whatever, because it was boiling that day, and I was covered in paint, and they asked me why. And we got chatting, and they were like, well, we own a bar in Scotland. Would you be interested in coming to paint the entire inside of it? So I did. Basically, it took a few months to work everything out and what we're going to do, designing, everything like that. That took me a total of, I think, 10, 12 days maybe to paint the entire inside. I had help. My partner tends to help me. I also film all my work, or have filmed it on YouTube. So he tends to do the camera work, and he'd do like large sections of colour for me.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question. How did you get? Obviously, being based in North Devon,
Yeah.
what I would argue one of the hardest things about being based in North Devon is getting out of North Devon. And that to get work in Aberdeen of all places.
Yeah, I've been some pretty interesting places with my work. But yeah, that was word of mouth. I thought it was hilarious. The most consistent way I've got work in North Devon is, like Jeff said on your previous episode, is word of mouth. It's who you know, it's who you've met, who can spring an idea off in someone's head. And someone I knew had painted at Hostel Plaza, so I found out about them and contacted them. And then the Aberdeen thing happened, and it was because I met them and they met me and saw the passion that I had for my work was why they hired me. But it's strange to think that the word of mouth thing can happen in such a far out way as well, not just in Devon.
And I guess going to a project that is actually in Devon and actually has quite a lot of local interest as well, from a location standpoint. Explain what's going on behind my head.
So this is a project I've started, which is to do about exploring change. And so we've got a lot of coastal change in North Devon. This is actually Seafield House in Westwood Ho, which Rob Braddock owns, and I've got a bit of a thing going with him where I ask him if I can paint his buildings that aren't being used, and he's let me have quite a few big walls in the past. I've wanted to paint Seafield for a long time, and I've managed to get him to agree to let me go in and paint it all. Excuse me. So the project, I've got a fascination with faces, and sort of emotion, and it's a very layered project. But Seafield is it's been a fascination of like my childhood, and a lot of people's, when you were growing up, it was dubbed the haunted house. A lady actually lived in it until relatively, well, a few years ago now, but she used to live in there all on her own, bless her. And then Rob ended up buying it. But it's very much changed over the years. When you see, there's old pictures of when it was brand new and there's a big conservatory on the side. Obviously that's changed a lot. The coast in Westwood Ho itself has changed a lot. People change a lot. So I was trying to kind of marry the two with the project. And I did an open call for people's faces. So this girl is actually singing. So I've taken shots of a video of her singing. And it's meant to make you feel something, but it's meant to be a sort of personal experience. And my idea was to paint that room and the adjoining room. Absolutely sort of cover it all in paint, and then do a 3D tour exhibition, possibly in a local gallery, because no one's allowed in there in groups because the insurance would be too high, because it's pretty dilapidated and the roof might fall in. So I wanted to do a tour, but I don't think that would be possible in the future. But yeah, I'm hoping to when I can go back to Devon, I can sort of complete or work on it some more. But we'll have to see if I end up finishing it or not.
So I guess going back quite a long way, I believe it must be like 5 or 6 years. I mean, one of the earliest memories that I have of meeting yourself was when I went down to Plymouth for Business Launch Group when I went to apply for the Prince's Trust loan. And what support did you receive from the Prince's Trust?
The Prince's Trust are amazing. I was incredibly excited to find out how much help was available to me. I've always wanted to be an artist and a creative person, and unfortunately, most of the responses people are, it's going to be hard, you're going to have a really horrible time, why would you want to be an artist, just get a job. My parents were amazing, and they're the reason why I'm an artist now. They supported me. But a lot of people you meet, when you tell them you want to be an artist, they kind of dismiss you and make you sort of, made me anyway, concerned about being able to actually fulfill that as my dream. So to find out there was so much support, mentorship. I had an awesome mentor, Graham, who really helped me. He didn't come from an artistic background, but he was extremely supportive and answered a lot of questions. The courses were amazing. I'm pretty dyslexic, and I find stuff overwhelming in terms of the process of running a business and all the things you have to go through, and forms and accounts and all of that kind of stuff was very, very daunting to me. Felt like I could do the art, that was okay. But to actually have the support there to be able to teach me what I needed to know and lay it out in front of me in a way that I understood, extremely important. So I went on courses. I did actually get the loan as well to purchase a vehicle so I could travel more and do the work. And again, they've been very supportive. I had a few slow months where I was able to pause the repayments, and they were extremely understanding and helpful. So that was a good thing to know as well, that if it was all new and I was if I did get into trouble, they were still going to be there to help, as it were, or to understand, I suppose, which you wouldn't necessarily get from a bank or feel like you would get.
And I guess, keeping within the topic of the trust, I believe you actually had a collaboration project quite shortly after starting, or I guess receiving that approval from Business Launch Group. You went on almost like a European tour with not only Jess Pearson, who I interviewed in the previous video, but also another young female entrepreneur from Bristol, I believe. If you could go into that, that'd be awesome, because it sounds like an incredible journey, basically.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I suppose the part that I've left out of the Prince's Trust is meeting the people, hearing about all their ideas, and it's a very exciting, fresh, creative place to be. And something that was born out of that, Emma, who owned a clothing company called the Mute Collective, which I think aren't around anymore, but she used to commission artists to design artwork for her clothing brand. So she had an idea about going to Bulgaria, the Banksko kind of area where all the ski resorts are. Excuse me. And Jess, who obviously, as you saw from last week, makes sort of films and documents, sort of stuff like that. So the idea was that Emma would take me and Jess over and sort of take us all around. We went to several places in Bulgaria, Sofia, the main city, and then we travelled along to Banksco, painting everywhere along the way. I painted at Art Hostel in Sofia when shortly after we landed. We had a little tour around the main city, and then we ended up travelling along to Banksco. I painted a hostel, like a little ski cottage in Banksco, and then a private sort of villa. I also did some work there as well. I did my first illegal work in Bulgaria as well, in the woods, which was pretty crazy. We also went to a very large communist monument, which the name escapes me, which is terrible, but it is this incredible building, and there's so much history there, and we drove a day to get there, and we broke in and I painted, and it got filmed. But yeah, it was one of the best experiences of my life, to be honest, so far. I hope to do another trip like that. I mean, I've painted abroad since, but the adventure of that trip was incredible. And there was Jodie Hartley, an amazing photographer, was there. Martin Bell as well. He's a great artist. So yeah, it was a very communal, creative experience. And I've done work for a few people that I've met as well, some design work and stuff. So it's a good way to make contacts. I mean, Jess lived in the same town as me, but she's a wonderfully creative person, and she does some really interesting things. And I wouldn't have met her and had the sort of relationship I did with her back then if it wasn't for the Princess Trust. And it's great to find like-minded people that are close to you. I mean, it's very validating.
On the subject of what's next, I've heard that you are currently working on a very interesting portraiture project that I believe you've got on your website just behind me. So this is I believe your most recent work. Very I guess still lots of imagery of faces, but it seems quite different compared to many of your previous pieces. Tell me what's going on here, and what was the inspiration behind this?
This is a sort of evolution of what I started in the Seafield project. Again, I'm a bit obsessed with faces. They tell a lot of stories, and they're just interesting, not objects obviously, but they're an interesting landscape to me. And for the Seafield project, I wanted more faces, and I wanted expression. I wanted them to be able to say something more to the viewer, basically. So I did an open call on my Facebook and Instagram, asking for people to pull stupid faces and send them to me, basically, and give me permission to digitally paint them. And I had an overwhelming response. I think I've still got photos. I did this around the 11th of March, so it was just before the whole COVID thing, just before everything got shut down. So I started doing that, and I started feeling out a new kind of style. I've got an obsession with pattern, as you can see, and sort of the play that has on a face, and it just all intrigues me. So I've just been experimenting basically over the past several months. And it's had an incredible response. I've had loads of commissions come in, which I thought it wasn't a plan. It just sort of happened. Everybody just really responded and related, I guess, to the work, and just had a crazy response. People asking for me to paint their picture. So I'm excited for lockdown to finish, because then I can actually paint some of them on giant walls. I'm hoping to go to some graph jams this year because you can do them socially distanced, I think. So I'm hoping to go to the Cheltenham Paint Festival. They've had their funding pulled, but they're going to do like a ad hoc one, I think. But yeah, the face, I just love the faces. They're so much fun.
A question that I was going to ask. So, I guess street art is quite a niche, and growing any business in a niche market like this is a very, very challenging thing to achieve. I was wondering what challenges did you face in kind of monetizing the work that you'd created over the years.
I managed to find. I got a lot of business in Devon, and if I'd have continued to make work that, if I was more of like a designer or illustrator minded, then I could have made a very solid mural painting business, even in Devon. It's super hard work, and it took me a while to get the contacts, but I still get people messaging me asking for bedroom murals and very specific logo-based murals, which I've now moved away from, which was hard for me because I thought that I needed to have constant work, and that didn't matter. It was still art and everything, but I've come to realize that I needed to find myself artistically before I could go into that kind of thing. Like now, if someone asked me to do a painting, I would want there to be a face in it. Or these canned birds, or cats. I love cats. So I'm very sort of specific about what I'm interested in painting, because I find other stuff drains me. And yeah, it was hard trying to build a business and get to where I want to be, but it's all been extremely. I'm where I am today because I went through all of that, so can't really complain, and I'm much happier now as an artist, doing things that excite me and make me feel like I'm pushing the boundaries and experimenting, which is important for me. If you're a graphic designer or illustrator, then it's sometimes easier to. I've been turned down for graphic design jobs before because they turn around and say you should just go and be an artist because your work's crazy. I think maybe I'm a bit too creative or experimental, like some of the portfolios I had at the time, or maybe they saw a younger version of themselves and it was like, just go see what happens. But it's hard to be told that because I've always been good at art and knew I could do the work, but they made the decision for me to take me on this crazy path.
And I think the next question that I was going to ask, it probably might be worth keeping certain details out, but the question I was going to ask is street art, is graffiti? Actually, I sound like such an old man asking this question. I can barely pull it out my mouth. But is this a crime? And essentially, have you ever faced adversary or very, very strong critique about your work? Because it is very, very public facing. And how have you dealt with that?
So any projects that weren't commercial, which I've had quite a few in Devon. I've painted a lot of Bideford and Easter Water, mostly with permission. So Rob, again, he's got the Blacksmith's Arms in Easter Water, and that's like opposite there. There's two huge walls which he sort of let me have a go at. And there's that in the High Street and in Cooper Street as well. I painted most of Cooper Street at one point. But in those instances, all I got was positivity. I think the only negativity I had was from a 3-year-old girl who walked past and her daddy said, "Do you like the picture?" And she said, "No, Daddy, I don't." So publicly, people love it. People will come and talk to you. They want to have a go. They want you to spray a stencil on them. I've had the most wonderful experiences painting publicly. I've never encountered the police or any sort of negativity, even like that I'm vandalising somewhere or anything, which is positive for me because I don't want to offend anyone with my artwork. I'm not a fan of like tagging and defacing things. I want things to be pretty. That's why I do it. But the irony is, technically, I'm graffitiing. I'm defacing public property, essentially. But yeah, no, I've not. Luckily, I've not been caught, and people who have seen me like what I've done, so I get a good response in that sense. Fingers crossed, I don't get caught in the future.
And when you have been caught, they've paid you to do more. So
yeah,
that must be the greatest thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am getting to the end of my questions that I was hoping to ask, and the last question that I had, you've kind of partially answered anyway. I am quite interested though in the whole kind of stamped graffiti can thing that you have going on, because this is present in quite a few or consistent, at least throughout a period of your work. So yeah, just what is this about?
It's a bit of an obsession I have again. I have probably getting on for 1,000 empty paint cans. And early on I noticed that they were difficult to get rid of. They're technically a hazardous material, so if you take them to the dump or whatnot, you have to pay to get rid of them. So my early theory, I think these were one of the first things I've ever made, and one of the first things that have been consistent. I'm still making work of them. And I crush the cans myself. I do painted versions of them and physical versions. So my idea was to make artwork from them because I didn't want to throw them away. It's kind of an environmental thing and kind of a poor artist thing. But yeah, it's a symbol of, I guess, I don't know, maybe being crushed, and a symbol of, recycling, a symbol of that they turned into birds at one point, so it's a symbol of freedom. It's just, I don't know, very deeply connected to what I do, and has a lot of my stuff has a lot of layers for me in terms of what they mean. But they also have just a charm. They just look like a stamp, like a statement, and it is quite different to the faces. But it's something I'm obsessed with, and I hope to make giant sculpture or artwork out of them one day when I have a studio big enough and somewhere where I can empty all the paint out.
And for anyone watching, I would highly recommend essentially following Seventh Pencil on Instagram, because if you're interested in anything that Mel's been talking about, or any of the work that we've shown, super interesting to follow her on Instagram. So I would highly recommend going and following.
I'm happy if anyone has any questions as well. Feel free to message, and if you need any, I've had a few people ask me if they want to go to art school or how they should go about doing it. Everyone's got their own journey, but I'm happy to give advice or any kind of help I can.
Well, on that note, we are approaching 3 o'clock here, so I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, by all means, Seventh Pencil is Mel's business. Go and check it out. As Mel said, feel free to ask questions on the group. It's been amazing to talk and catch up with you, Mel, and good to know that you're keeping well and still producing amazing art. So no, I wish you a pleasant week ahead even, and look forward to seeing the future work that you're putting out. Hopefully somewhere in Europe or somewhere that's not here. Somewhere far flung and interesting.
Yes. Thank you, Guy. It's good to see you again.
No worries. Hoping to be back next week. I'm not sure whether we'll do an interview next week. I might just do a ask me anything or something like that whilst I'm, I don't know, creating a model or something. So if you have any questions, I'm actually probably going to put the spotlight on myself instead for a change, because I think it's sorely overdue. But anyway, it's been great to have a chat, and catch up next week.